Right off the cusp of finishing a coin game, I found myself finally having some time to relax. But before I could even take a single breath, I got a message from a friend of mine.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
For those unfamiliar with game jams, they're just events where game developers crunch to make a game in a short amount of time, centered around a certain theme. Doki's Game Jam wasn't my first rodeo, and I figured I'd be a better fit for that than GMTK's now prestigious Game Jam. With that being said, before the jam even started, I started working on the game. Since the game had to have Dokibird and affiliates as primary characters, I knew I'd need some kind of Dokibird model, so I tried my hand at modeling, but... So yeah, I gave up on that pretty quick. Either way, the start day rolled around and the theme ended up being chain reactions. I spent most of the first day just mucking around, thinking of ideas, wasting time and just getting in my head. However, when I was looking at Doki's reference sheets, I had an idea that turns out everyone else had. Dokibird's more current model features her as a western gunslinger. I was pretty fresh off of finishing Red Dead earlier this year and I had an idea. I'd cobbled together the Deadeye mechanic from Red Dead and put my own spin on it. I threw a quick prototype together in Unity and had a pretty good feeling about it. In order to fit with the theme of chain reactions, I had to modify my mechanic a little bit. In Red Dead, any enemy that Arthur tags during the Deadeye is shot by one bullet each. However, our Dokibird is built different and doesn't need to waste ammunition like that. I changed the original Deadeye mechanic to one that requires the player to just shoot one time, and the bullet would ricochet from one target to the next, a chain of targets if you will. The early prototype was promising, but I knew there was something more that could be done. Chain reactions imply almost a domino effect. Most of these have a start and keep going without your input, potentially leading to catastrophic outcomes. I wanted to have that game-breaking feel to it, and after some thinking, I came up with an infinitely ricocheting bullet, which was certainly fun to play around with. I wanted to keep that mechanic, but balancing would be difficult. But I came to the realization that there was no reason to think about balancing a game when I didn't even have one yet to begin with. So instead, I got to making some enemies for the game instead. The basic enemy that would start you off was this spawner, and it spawns these floating wisps that just run at you. It was an idea that I stole from Devil Daggers, a big inspiration that I took after for this game. Then we got Shield Wisp, an enemy that requires you to destroy all their weak points before you can shoot them. We also got Rockman, an enemy that just rolls at you from ground level, but if you slide into them, it breaks them instantly into pieces, and you can shoot each of these pieces to get more power. The last enemy was the Tower Wisp. I like this one, this was my favorite, as the weak point is located beneath the tower, and you have to slide under it and shoot it in slow-mo as you pass by. With those enemies set in the game, all that was left were art passes and polishing. My good friend at Fuyukaye decided to help chime in on the art, and like the true artist Chad she is, learned Blender in just a couple of days to give me these models for Dokibird's FPS arms, as well as the basic model for the Wisp. She also did all the art for the menu screen, comics, and tutorial pages that exist in the game. Go check out her work, she's gonna go far. Back to the game, I spent a good majority of the time just trying to balance the game. The wave system was pretty much the same thing as I had made in Alptron, my first game, which meant every enemy would have to be handpicked by me to spawn in the game. It got really tedious messing with the wave system, so I just threw something random together initially and ended up never really changing it, all the way to release. The map also underwent some changes, and based on some of the concept art that my friend made for me, we came up with an environmental design of the game as well as the story. And I think for all intents and purposes, this game came out much better than my previous projects. I've come to realize that every game I work on gives me a valuable lesson that I'll be remembering as I make the next game. Alptron was a lesson in acceptance and compromise that I'd have to deal with not making good games for a while, but having the mindset to still see it finished. Coin Game was a lesson in visual direction and compromising on artistic visuals. It helped me figure out how to do more with less. This game, Doki's Day Off, taught me about design and how I should be centering my game around the mechanics I build into it. Devil Daggers was especially helpful in figuring out how arena shooters like this could be fun. The game turned out well, and I had a lot of fun working on the project over the past 2 weeks, but since this is a game jam, I'd be remiss not to mention some of the other titles people have made for the project. Obviously, there were more games than this in the jam, with the top 10 being especially great. The links for these games will be in the description. As far as how I did in the jam, there were a total of 239 entries, and I placed 75th overall. Not a bad placement, and about what I expected from the quality of our game. Just for curiosity's sake though, I went through the top 100 games in the Doki Jam and did a very rough estimate of what kinds of game genres people worked on. It turns out, FPS games were quite rare. I counted 3 in the top 100. Anyways, thank you for watching, and also huge shout out to Dokibird and her team for hosting the jam. I think I've had enough crunch for a while, so I'll be taking it more easy on my next project. Silk Song is coming out soon, so maybe I'll take a break.